Hello, Baker Advanced Financial Planning students. Hope everyone is doing well. Enjoyed the forum discussion posts, so keep those up. As I mentioned before, I kind of respond as I can to individuals. If you jump in earlier, we're likely to respond, but we'll try to get to everybody by the end of the course. And you're doing a good job on those, so just keep those up. One thing I will suggest, though, is that I've noticed you may want to brush up a little bit on APA style. I know a lot of you came in with the MLA style, but typically when you like writing your paragraphs, include an in-text citation, you might say that Barnhill in parentheses 2020 suggests that or posits that. But if it's coming at the end of the sentence, what you do is on your last word, let's just say taxes, then you would do open parentheses, Barnhill, comma, then 2020, close out parentheses, then period. So it's just something little. I'm not a stickler for APA in this course, but I know that some professors are, especially the papers that you write. So I just want you to be prepared for that. So I'll try to give you a little feedback and insights for that going forward. So this week, you're going to have readings on chapters 4, 5, and 6. Continue with the quiz and your homework questions. If you have homework questions, do email me. Try to email me earlier in the week. I'm posting this video just a little bit early because I'm going to take my son to Wisconsin Sunday through Wednesday. We're going to start looking at some 2 colleges. He narrowed it down to. If he's going, they have these Division III schools in Wisconsin. They're surprisingly, when I compared the cost, are relative to an in-cost tuition in the state of Missouri. So he wants to get out of state. I've been saving money for him since he was born in a 529 plan. I don't have enough money to cover everything. So in my time period of life in those transitions, it's about, yes, I've built up all these savings for years. His grandparents have done this too. How do we wisely make choices about the college that he chooses? You want to choose you're going to college obviously to a return on investment, so that's important too, but also about the cost too. So you have to weigh those things, and what is the best decision. And at Division III, they don't give wrestling scholarships, so it's you do it because you love the sport. So, but either way, it's a good way. A big thing I've learned in my research on college students is that engagement does matter. If you're engaged, you feel like you're part of it, the community, you feel welcome. It's going to matter to you, and I hope you all feel that you were engaged and welcome Baker too. So to go over some of the topics this week, first one is obviously with the taxes, and just reading this week about maybe the stimulus package. I know I think it's called the HEROES Act and HEALS Act. There could be the potential that there's more stimulus package coming. We have to wait and see if it passes. There have been some suggestions actually just to change the payroll taxes, so it's less painful, and maybe that would have been a good idea, But anyway, it's a form of stimulus, so instead of taking out like 7.65% for your Social Security tax, they would just lower that. And I think they've done this in the past, and that way it would be like an immediate increase in spending. But obviously, that doesn't help those that are have lost their jobs. So they're trying to put all these things in the bill. We'll see if that gets passed, and if we get on the round of a stimulus package. But I think it will be based on, again, as previously as your income. I think the cutoffs are $75,000, or if you're married, up to $150,000. But the reason I bring that up, it deals directly with taxes, and I would say one of the most important things with taxes, when we say that tax avoidance or tax planning is good, tax evasion, you go to jail. That's bad. So you don't want to do those types of things. But you can be very strategic about planning and thinking about what my tax liability or potential tax liability would be in a given year. In fact, this is what I do. I have a spreadsheet that I keep track, because I work all these different adjunct jobs. I have my job, my wife has a job. I have like 3 other universities that I teach for occasionally, not very often. Baker's the number one. But that I live in Missouri, but I pay Kansas taxes sometimes, so I have to factor that in, and I have to make sure that I have enough withheld. I also have to think about life events that change. For example, like this past year, my son had turned 17, so I was no longer eligible for that child credit, which was quite a bit actually. It was $2,000. So, luckily myself going to school at KU and being able to take advantage of incentives like education credits, which I'm sure a lot of you do too, because I'm sure you're paying some of this expense out of your pocket, can help offset some of the taxes you owe. So what I'm getting to is really suggest that you keep a spreadsheet, and almost every paycheck, or maybe once a month, track in that spreadsheet, okay, what was my income taxable, because a lot of us take advantage of 403Bs, 401Ks, and everything. And then how much did I pay in federal? How much did I pay in state? How much did I pay in Social Security tax? How much did I pay in local tax? So that way you can kind of look at the formulas in the textbook and see that says, oh, I'm on pace to kind of break even, or I'm going to have a shortfall. Because unfortunately, what a lot of people do, this is just my philosophy, is they kind of needlessly give money to the government as a form of a loan. They get a big refund back, but a lot of financial advisors I talk to is just you need to kind of want to break even each year. You don't necessarily want to owe anything, but maybe just get a little back because you have access to that cash. Because if you think about it, it's an opportunity cost throughout the year. So a lot of this chapter you're going to look through and think about what is going to impact my taxes, and these things change constantly. That's one thing about tax law. It's like it's never the same every year. A new president will come in with Biden. Probably, if that happens, you're going to have a whole bunch of changes again in the tax law. So you have to adjust. So that's one thing that doesn't necessarily stay constant. You always have to be on kind of top of things. But the good news is that over the years, I remember having to do everything paper. A lot of it's all electronic now, and you can do it fairly simply through, I would say, software packages if it doesn't get too complicated for you. Then I would seek specialized advice because you don't want to get in trouble with the IRS. And then, you're going to talk about banking. Obviously, with banking right now, interest rates are relatively low, and anything you're going to earn in the savings account, CD, but it also benefits you from a loan by having lower rates. That's because the Fed has pushed interest rates to nearly zero. They talk about the different types of financial institutions. I used to work in the banking industry. I used to work for a bank. I used to work for a credit union. Difference of credit union, like a local one in Kansas City, you see Patrick Mahomes. It's that there's a common bond and it's a nonprofit. The idea in theory is that they can offer potentially lower rates or better rates of return. Publicly traded companies, banks like a Commerce Bank, is a set of owners, and they have to pay out dividends, or they do pay out dividends, or they decide whether they're going to pay out dividends to the shareholders of those that own the companies. So they talk about different products. Checking, savings accounts, deposits, debit accounts, credit cards, and even today, banking is kind of blurred. It can go over like I know I have a Fidelity account, but they can offer me a credit card that gives me 2% back. I've chosen not to do that. I do it through my own bank, but it's more about the services that these banks offer. But one of the things you're going to read about again is about that what you did in your finance classes is that Treasury yield curve. And the idea of like a risk-free rate. When I used to work at Sprint, I used to always compare that Treasury yield curve to our borrowing cost, I should say, for Sprint. And that kind of gave us an idea of the risk premium that people expected for us, whether we were safe or less safe, and that would adjust depending on our performance. So last to discuss is about, it ties into Chapter 5, kind of carries over about managing your money. A lot of it was more about like certain strategies to protect yourself, or as we talked about recently in the forum discussions about having enough cash available, liquidity. I would argue liquidity is the ability to convert to cash quickly. And here's the without loss. Okay, so like a CD is less liquid than money in a checking account. There's a penalty involved, imposed. So, your house is even less liquid because, it takes time to convert your house into money. So that loss of value to me is still important to the definition of liquidity. But especially time periods right now, and I think I was trying to remember who posted this, was talking about, the use of credit cards for liquidity, being very risky. And I would say that is a risky way to do it too. But, do you have emergency savings set up? To 3 to 6 months is the general recommended. Not everybody has this, but if you don't, you have access to liquidity before you lose your job. So some people, what I have through my credit union is a 80% line of credit on my house. I have my mortgage too, but I also have a credit line that if I need to use that, I have that money available. And usually, the payment is like $150 a month at a minimum, and interest rates right now are still relatively low. I think it's about 4% on it. But the idea is that in case something does happen to avoid having to go way down in your standard of living for a period of time, hopefully you can have some cash flow come in to meet the bills and payments and those things. But the textbook also talks about some other tools relative to overdraft protection, how you can manage that money. They talk about money market deposit accounts. Essentially, money market means that anything that matures in 1 year or less. And banks, what they do is they go out and they repurchase agreements, commercial paper, CDs, other type of very short-term investments, could be even euro deposits. They pull those monies together, and they give you a overnight rate or a rate, depending your money in there. But again, interest rates are so low, it's almost negligible. It's at 0%. So in real terms, you're probably actually worse off. I don't know. I don't think we'll have a lot of inflation during COVID-19 just because there's so many unemployed. But it's really just a safety and a backup and precautionary, because ideally you don't want too much liquidity. You don't have at some point, I said like maybe a 3 to 6 month. But if you had let's just say extreme case, a 5-year supply of money sitting in a savings account, it's a huge opportunity cost for you. So you should probably be taking advantage of something, at least putting that money in some type of retirement deposit account to take advantage of the tax benefits. And that kind of goes back to our chapter about tax strategy. It probably behooves me to say, hey, can I put more money in a health savings account? I don't need it now, but I can use it later. It would help lower my tax liability in the current time period. So those are some of the things you're going to be reading about this week. Again, if you do have any questions, do email me. I try to check that daily. I'll be on the road, but I'll be checking it, and I'll try to grade things as soon as possible too. But otherwise, I'm just going to post this a little bit early because I'm doing some traveling. But I want you all to stay safe and have a great week, and we'll talk to you online. Take care.